Hi, my name's Amy Hartzler. I'm the studio director here at Free Range, and I worked closely with the Great Place to Work team over the past year to develop the brand guidelines we're here to present to you now.
My name is Jonah Sachs, and I'm the creative director of Free Range Studios. Over the past year, I've helped design the creative elements of the new Great Place to Work brand.
Earlier this year, we began a project to help Great Place to Work find common language and messaging strategies that could be shared across the globe. The goal was to provide all of you with inspiring, consistent, and thoroughly tested messaging that would form the foundation for your marketing, PR, and outreach efforts. In other words, the basis for the new Great Place to Work brand. And first off, a word of thanks. This brand guide wouldn't have been possible without help from all of you, both in the feedback you may have provided along the way, as well as by making your lists available for testing. Having direct feedback from your current and potential clients was critical to allowing us to feel confident in the final guidelines we have developed. Also, a brief note about how we produced the work we did test and ultimately finalize. First, our creative team met with a core team at Great Place to Work, including Tolovi and Robert Levering, along with Rodrigo and Jose Antonio from Chile, Leslie from the US, Ansgar from Germany, with Sancha serving as the overall project coordinator. We dove deeply into the history, values, and activities of the company and emerged with language and ideas to test with a global audience of current clients, potential clients, and affiliates. Gathering qualitative and quantitative feedback, we refined our work to build directly on your brand equity and goals and in consideration of what connected with your audiences. Then, step by step, testing with your core team and outside audiences along the way, we built out a complete brand guide that we feel certain will allow you to focus your messaging and improve the performance of your business. We believe that a great brand empowers those who work with it more than it restricts them. The brand guide we are about to present is not just a list of rules and regulation. Instead, our goal is to make absolutely clear the inspiration behind the work that you do and the tested ways that inspiration can be explained and passed on to audiences. Our hope is that it will provide each of you with solid guideposts for every communication need in the future, empowering you to introduce the flavor and tone of your individual characters and voices as appropriate. One final note, Free Range has just begun working on the Great Place to Work website, along with some marketing material for the U.S. affiliate to promote gift work. Other collateral work is also in the process of being designed. These are the first projects using the brand guidelines as a starting point for developing new creative work. We will release a modest update to the guide just after these webinars have been completed, including some additional clarifying points based on the discussions we have had. A more significant update to this brand guide will follow in January with the addition of a section including visual guidelines that build on what we review today. Before we transition to the results of our work, we'd like to offer a few words about our branding theory, including how we define a brand and what it takes for brands to succeed.
So branding is a big word, and it's used a lot of different ways by a lot of people. It can mean, for some, anything from a simple logo design to the look and feel of all your printed materials. For some, it means the entire public-facing communications of an organization or a company. So I'd like to just jump in by talking about what we mean when we talk about a new brand. Every one of us encounters literally thousands of marketing messages every day. Most of them are pretty unwelcome and worthless. They're just kind of talking at us, and we've, as consumers, have learned to sort of filter them out as we see them. We get about 3,000 messages a day, so we have to learn how to categorize which ones have some value, because clearly we do have to interact with some of these brands to get what we need in life and to accomplish our goals. But we need to learn how to filter out the important stuff from all the noise. And so each of us has become kind of an expert at understanding which brands will give us value and which are worthless. To understand how someone's mind does this instant mental trick, let's dive into an imaginative metaphor for a moment. I'm asking you to imagine brands as ancient temples, and customers as Indiana Jones-like treasure hunters. Indy knows that most temples are nothing more than ruins, devoid of treasure. But deep inside some temples there are jewels. The problem is, in order to get to the jewels, he has to travel all the way to the innermost chamber of the temple. This is a real commitment, and most temples are simply not worth his time. After all, there are thousands around to explore. So how does our explorer decide which temples to investigate? Well, we know there are three things he'll be looking for first. First of all, he wants relevance. He wants to know the brand is offering something that actually matters to him. Second, he's looking for coherence. That means the brand is consistently building on some kind of a theme that he understands and is presented in a way that immediately makes him know that it's talking to him. And finally, if there's authenticity. He wants to know that the brand truly believes in what it's saying and is not simply out there trying to manipulate him, but to give him something of value that the brand itself believes to be true. So if a temple from the outside suggests that inside these three things can be found, relevance, coherence, and authenticity, our explorer is likely to dive in and explore further. There's only one way to provide relevance, coherence, and authenticity. The brand must know deep down a single big idea on which it's based. Brands organized around a simple, expressible big idea are clear on what they offer to their audiences, and they communicate immediately why that's relevant to them. They are consistent in their messaging because they know what their North Star is that will always guide them, and that ensures coherence. And they have nothing to hide because they truly believe in the idea that guides them. So they're also authentic. So the big idea is a key organizing principle for creating these three things that the explorer is looking for: relevance, coherence, and authenticity. Now let's take a look at how the temple is built. I've said already that the jewel is usually in the center of the temple. It's farthest away from the explorer, and all the rooms are built around this single jewel. We know that the jewel is the big idea, and each room around it is a different piece of the brand that the explorer will encounter. Now here's a map of a temple that's been built with a jewel in the center. So there is a big idea. But look how all the doorways are aligned in different ways. So as the explorer looks inside, he can't glimpse that big idea because all he sees is a wall. If the elements of the brand, or the rooms in this case, don't align and give the explorer a glimpse of the big idea from the first time he encounters the brand, he'll simply move on and find a brand that does offer perfect alignment and lets him know that inside there is authenticity, coherence, and relevance for him. And a brand built with perfect alignment that the explorer is more likely to engage with does look something like this. So let's bring this metaphor down to earth for a moment. What is this temple that we're talking about? Well, we've seen the big idea in the center and the rooms built around it. The outermost room, the first thing that your explorer is going to encounter is your name. And then probably almost right away the logo and tagline. Then as the explorer chooses to go deeper, he might encounter the value proposition, which is the one paragraph elevator pitch, if you will, that explains why this offering is relevant to our explorer. Going deeper, he'll discover the brand story, which is the language that brings it into the storytelling type of approach that defines who the characters in our world are, what the conflicts are, and what can be gained by interacting with the brand. It's a narrative approach to marketing. And then even deeper than that, he gets the deep messaging, which will be created by you as we go forward, built off of the guidelines of the brand, but can be used in speeches, on websites, in brochures. It should be the sort of living language that we create for unique audiences from unique sources, so the brand can continue to live on with the deep messaging. And notice how each of them points the explorer closer and closer and more in the direction of the big idea. We do have the jewel in the center, but every room is built around that jewel and has a doorway that aligns, so that even from the very outermost walls of the temple, the explorer can look inside and glimpse the big idea. And as he goes deeper into the brand and get closer to the big idea, of course he can see more and more of it. But from the very beginning, he's been pointed in the right direction. All great brands are architected this way, and now yours will be too. Let's look at a quick example of how it's worked for one of the most iconic brands in the world. In 1984, Apple Computing began communicating around a single big idea. And the big idea comes down to something like this: creativity rules, and for the creative nonconformist, there's only one way to express that in personal computing, and that's through Apple. Now, here's what Apple's advertising looked like before they had that big idea. Notice they didn't really have much to say except to show their logo, make a pun about their name, and then list a bunch of features and pictures about their product itself. Then they came up with the big idea and changed everything. In 1984, they ran this commercial only once during the Super Bowl. To this day, it's one of the most famous ads of all time. And since then, every piece of marketing from Apple has been aligned to this idea. Remember, the idea is that creative nonconformity rules. In 60 seconds, Apple was able to tell a story that would declare its marketing for the next 25 years. Now, once they had established that big idea in people's minds, they moved on in the next decade to the Think Different campaign. Here they associated some of the most creative nonconformists in history with their brand and two simple words: think different. They don't show their product, they don't list their features. All they're doing now is marketing around their big idea and asking people to see the importance of creative nonconformity. And then finally, they asked audience to actually declare whether they're a PC or a Mac. They truly could embody the entire brand because people understood the big idea. See the nerdy conformist on the left, and the out-of-the-box thinker on the right. Now that people had understood the big idea of what Apple Computer has to offer, they could actually identify themselves with the product and the big idea. Now, Apple's never had to directly express their big idea to audiences. What they have done is align every communication to it, from packaging and interface to advertising and the in-store experience. Everything inspires confidence in a product that will empower the heroes of their story to abandon conformity, explore their creativity, and discover untapped potential. Now, Apple's success has been built over 25 years of excellent marketing, great product design, and all that will have to go into building your brand as well. But just as the 1984 ad was a first step for Apple in declaring the idea that they would align everything around, this brand guide does the same for Great Place to Work, and we believe can infuse the same amount of passion and potential for a great brand as Apple's big idea gave them. So as I said, the big idea is core to the brand, but it doesn't necessarily have to be expressed directly to your audiences every time. We call the big idea the foundation of your internal-facing brand. It will be turned outward to audiences, but first you must truly understand who you are and where you're coming from before you can do outward-facing marketing. So, with the metaphor of the temple in mind, let's look at the jewel that will help you create relevance, coherence, and authenticity. We create a better world by helping companies become great places to work. So remember that Great Place to Work was founded on Robert Levering's passionate belief that improving workplaces could improve human relationships, communities, and societies as a whole. This is still the heart of the mission of the company, its authentic core that differentiates it from the traditional business consulting. Just as Apple doesn't pitch its big idea at the entry point, we don't draw clients in with the idea of building a better world. Rather, we let our passion for our social mission infuse our communications with a tone of active passion, not just for each client, but for the model we've developed that can help all companies. And we tap into that human desire in each of us and each of our clients to contribute to something larger as they improve their own businesses. If every communication